There are a lot of reasons why a reader will give your script a pass, but I'm going to give you 6 of the most common, and I'm listing them in the order a reader is going to object to them. And you can think of these as areas you need to work on and improve if you want to get better results as a screenwriter. And if you don't, you will always get that dreaded pass. Number 1, your script doesn't follow formatting conventions. This one, at first, is visual. Literally, you can tell if a script follows normal screenwriting conventions just by a glance at the pages. Does the title page, for example, have only the information needed, or is there a bunch of other stuff? You literally need your title, written by your name, and your email. Nothing else. And if you've got extra stuff, it screams you don't know what you're doing. Strike 1. And then, once the script begins, does it follow the conventions? There are no rules, just expectations, and you have to show you are meeting those expectations. You can deviate from them, but you have to be consistent. It has to make sense for the way you're telling the story. And you can't just be making up formatting elements because you want to. The format is a storytelling tool, and you should be using it to help you tell the story. And if you don't follow normal formatting conventions, you're forcing the reader out of the script and whatever story you're trying to tell. And here's the bottom line. If it doesn't look like a script, then it clearly isn't written by a screenwriter or by someone who takes the craft seriously. And I'm sorry if that's hard to hear, but that's just the way it is. And the thing is, formatting conventions are relatively easy to learn, so learn them. Screenwriting software helps you on this front, so let it. And there is some good free screenwriting software out there, so you don't get to use that as an excuse. And if you're manipulating the formatting within your screenwriting software, you're probably creating an unnecessary barrier between your script and the reader, and you don't want to do that. Now, this alone won't get your script rejected, but it's usually a clue to the reader that one of the following reasons exists in your script for your script to get a pass. And now the reader is looking for them, looking for a reason to reject your script. So that's bad. And you can avoid it very simply, but messing up the formatting is not as bad as number 2 on this list. And that's when your story takes too long to get started. A reader needs to know within the first 5 pages what the story is generally going to be about. They need to know the setting, the players, and what the general topic of the plot is going to be. So if you've got a zombie movie, that means there probably needs to be a zombie in the first few pages, or at least a serious discussion about what to do in case of a zombie apocalypse, to give the reader a hint about what is coming. And no, this doesn't mean you need to have the inciting incident on page 3. But it does mean the reader needs to have a solid hint at what the story is about. They aren't always looking at your log line before they read. They have the title and page 1. And if you aren't getting to the point so the reader knows what the story is about very, very soon, you've got problems. And yes, you should get to the inciting incident as soon as possible. And you should put your main character onto whatever task they're going to be doing and pursuing as soon as possible. Now, that doesn't mean by page 5, but it's definitely before page 45. And part of getting started is the reader has to know what the stakes are. What's going to be lost if the main character fails? Are they going to be trapped in a life that never allows them to pursue their dreams? Are they going to get the whole platoon killed? Is the asteroid going to destroy the planet? So the reader needs to know what the story is generally about. And they need to know what is at stake. What are they going to be rooting for? And who are they going to be rooting for? And I'll get to that one in a second. But first, the number 3 reason why your script is getting passed: the language is too generic, there's no real voice. Now, it should be clear that you have a unique point of view and a unique way to tell the story. And part of this has to do with word choice and verb tense, so active is better. It's happening now. You aren't reporting on events that already happened. They are unfolding right before our eyes. So find the most exciting, evocative, and enticing language you can. But, and this is a big but, it should match the tone and feel of the script. Or maybe a better way to say it, it should enhance the tone and feel. So if you're writing a drama, the words that connote excitement are not the same words you'd use if you're writing an action adventure. But like with characters, you don't want the descriptions to all be one note. If everything is always exciting, everything's like always up here, then nothing is exciting. You have to throttle the intensity up and down to help the reader go on a ride. But that ride needs to start out exciting. It's like roller coasters. The big drop, the big thing almost always comes first, but there are surprises and twists and turns along the way that make the whole ride fun. And you want to follow the tone and vibe throughout your script with your own voice. And it should be distinctive. It doesn't necessarily mean unique. It can, but not necessarily. It does mean distinct. Like you are the only one who can tell this story. It should be authoritative and confident, and the reader should definitely feel like they are in good hands, in the hands of a master storyteller. And the reader is able to track what is going on and who they need to be tracking with within the story, but that's really the next issue. So, number 4, your script will get a pass if the reader is unsure who the main character is. Or another way, they don't know whose story it is. In short, there should be a main character, and it should clearly be their story. And there are lots of reasons for this. First, stories with one main character make up, by far, the highest percentage of stories that get made for the screen. The reader won't be thrown off in trying to figure out whose story it is because it is clearly one character's story. 2, these stories are the easiest for aspiring writers like you to learn to tell well. Yes, there are a handful of multiple protagonist stories, but they are rare. So do yourself a favor and learn to tell a story with one main character. But 3, this is honestly the most important of the 3 when it comes to industry readers, to entice an actor to attach to the script. They want to know if the main character is interesting enough for that named actor to even want to play. This means the main character needs to be interesting, robust, to garner the interest of a named actor. And readers are looking for this. If they can't imagine a movie star playing the role of the main character, especially if they don't know who the main character is, this is a big problem for you. And most often, main character confusion happens when there are too many characters, when scenes don't belong to specific characters. And by the way, every scene should belong to a specific character. And when there is no clear introduction that differentiates one character from another. So if all of your character introductions are the same and look the same on the page, then all characters are equally important. And that's not the case. So as the reader is reading, they should be able to tell who the main character is just from the introduction of that character. And the fact that scenes around them, at least the initial scenes, belong to that main character. And keep in mind, a story is about someone who wants something badly, is having trouble getting it, and they get it or they don't. And if you're taking note, a story is about someone, one person. So have a main character that is clearly articulated and would interest a named actor to play that role. But one big problem is aspiring writers get this far. They clean up all the previous ones that I've just mentioned, and then they fumble the last 2 on this list. And the next one happens way more often than people think, and it's this. Number 5, your script has no story. Remember, a story is about someone who wants something badly, is having trouble getting it, they get it or they don't. And a lot of writers think they have a story, but they don't. They have events that happen to the main character, but those events aren't really connected to each other outside of the fact that they include the main character. And worse, the main character ends up not pursuing anything or not actively avoiding something, which is also fine. But you need one or the other. And if you don't, you do not have a story. You might have a script, it might be 107 pages, but there's no story. There is no someone pursuing anything they want badly. There is no trouble getting what they want, and we never know if they get anything or not because we don't even know what they're after. And this is a problem because a reader needs something to root for. And if there's no story, then there's nothing to root for, and the reader won't care. Result? Pass. So when this happens, even if the previous 4 things are met, essentially you are communicating to the reader that you like to write, but you're not any good at it. Anyone can write a script, but only people who know what a story is can write a story. And if you don't have a good handle on what a story is, you're going to flounder and fail with draft after draft and not find success until you begin to understand what a story is. But a lot of aspiring writers then fall into a trap. They don't know what a story is, so they do the next thing they think they should do. And they begin to write by following a formula or a story map, and they try to write a script according to those patterns. Patterns like Save the Cat or Dan Harmon's Story Circle, and both have merits, but they are not a substitute for knowing how stories work. Because if all you're doing is following a formula, then you're falling prey to the last big reason scripts get rejected. And that's reason number 6, the story is too predictable or too formulaic. When formulas are followed, and keep in mind readers are reading 2 to 3 scripts a day, this isn't their first rodeo, they can spot a Save the Cat script or a Story Circle script by page 5 at the latest. And if you're tracking with their formulas, your script is going to be a pass because the script is going to feel unsatisfying. The main problem is because following a formula mostly gets a plot working, but it doesn't include all the emotional parts needed in storytelling for a satisfying experience for the reader. So if you're just writing to check boxes in a formula, you may have a story, but it will be emotionally unsatisfying. But the bigger issue here is predictability, and that's one of the worst sins you can have as a screenwriter. And predictability is when the reader knows not only what is going to happen, but how it's going to happen. And a formulaic script is not only predisposing the reader to knowing the what and the how, but it also lets them know the when. And that's because you're following some kind of hit this moment on X page kind of formula. And it becomes too much, and it's going to be a hard pass. This is why you will hear the mantra about painting yourself into a corner as a storyteller. If you don't know how the main character is going to get out of predicament when you're creating the story in the planning stages, then the reader won't be able to predict it when they're reading the script. Again, it doesn't mean they don't know what is going to happen. Most any movie or TV show you watch, you can predict a scene or two. You can kind of predict what's going to happen, even if it's the final showdown between the main character and the antagonist. You know what's going to happen. You just don't know exactly when or exactly how. And you must keep the reader unable to predict when and how the events in your story are unfolding. So as you're working on your script, you want to make sure you're taking care of each of these elements. And if you want some more insight into the perspective of a producer when they're reading your script, you can watch this. Thank you for watching. Fun buttons and links below, including a book to help you know what a story actually is. And when you tell a story that matters. See you later.